But I'm surprised, you see, that you've been championing Liszt's music for many years, and yet you still find differences in performances. You haven't actually reached a point when you say that is how it should be played.
I would say only the young people who are stuck, they play the same way every year. Right now. I hope that as they get older that they will stop realizing that the page is not sacred.
What, you believe that you can improve on Liszt, you mean?
You can improve on everyone.
Do you change notes then? Exactly.
Only on rare occasions. I changed some things in Liszt because all his pupils did, and he usually consented to the changes. I usually only change things when they are being repeated, because I think repetition without some kind of decoration is rather dull.
Because he did write a vast amount of music. Are you still finding pieces that you don't know?
Oh, I hope so. Yes, because life would be very dull without that. I look for new things all the time. I may not play them in public, but I have piles of music at home that I am getting around to, and as I keep adding to the piles of music to get around to.
Do you think Liszt has been a bit out of fashion recently? Because he's not a composer that you hear too much of.
Well, the trouble is that you see that people only know his very popular works, and they have had them drummed out by artists who really shouldn't touch them. I shouldn't say artists, pianists who shouldn't touch them. And therefore he's become known for these commonplace performances of well-known music.
But isn't there something very romantic and very flamboyant about it, which perhaps is out of times at the moment?
The flamboyancy and the romanticism is what keeps people coming to the halls. You notice today when they do a piece of Arnold Schoenberg, the hall is half empty, and usually as the piece progresses, people leave. You see, so it's not a matter of tonality or what have you, all of the musical expressions, but it's just the fact that his imagination was so wonderful that and he had a lyric quality which if you avoid it, the pieces sound technical. But underneath all of the technical things, there is a lyricism which is really beautiful, and that's what's attractive to his music, and his influence on our period is so tremendous.
He's a fascinating man too. I mean, obviously he's one of those people that one would love to have seen in the flesh, but he was very tall, wasn't he? Physically quite a big man.
Oh, I don't think he was too tall, but he had a wonderful face, and he wasn't really of any nationality. Although he was born in Hungary, he lived in Germany and Italy and France, and wherever he lived, he was like he changed the color of his skin for whatever it was that he was doing. And the French thought he was too German, the Germans thought he was too French, and the Italians didn't know what he was, and the Hungarians also wondered where his real allegiance happened to be. And he was a wonderful person because he was interested in the literature of the day. He knew all the great writers. He knew all the great singers, the great composers, and all the theologians also. He always was interested in religion, and he tried desperately to be religious, but didn't quite make it.
Well, he became a monk, didn't he?
Yes, but that doesn't mean anything. A lot of people do.
And he was obviously devastating to women. I mean, they seemed to fall around his feet.
Well, he liked women, especially smart ones. It didn't matter so much whether they were beautiful or not beautiful, as long as they were smart. That's very unusual because most men avoid smart women. You know.
Really? Do you mean smart in an intellectual sense?
Oh yes, very intellectual. Yes, and one of his girlfriends had 40,000 serfs in Russia. I said that's where they get the expression "serf service." And she stayed with him till the end. When he died, she locked herself up in her apartment and only lasted for 1 year after he was dead.
Was that the one that smoked cigars?
The Princess Wittgenstein. Yes.
Oh, yeah. Yes. There was a countess too. He liked noble ladies.
Oh,
obviously.
yes.
Yeah. But haven't you got a direct link back to him in a sense? Was it?
Well, I knew some of his pupils, and I have had music that had markings on it, his markings and things, and so I don't feel that anybody really ever has a link to the past unless they were able to touch the person or be part of their personal life. But that's about as close as you can get. But I did hear a lot of gossip, and I did hear a lot of things when I was a child, because I knew an Englishman who lived in the United States who had heard Clara Schumann play many times. And then there was I was born in Pittsburgh, and we had many interesting people there who had come from Europe. One of them had been a gentleman in waiting to Ludwig II, and another one was a Russian nobleman who Andrew Carnegie brought to head the Carnegie Museum in Pittsburgh. His name was Avinov. His sister was Princess Shumatev, who was painting Roosevelt when he died. And he had been a pupil of Scriabin. So, and then Toscanini, of course, pulled out a handkerchief one day when I was at his home and said, "Wagner gave this to me." He must have been probably 16 at the time.
Really?
So those names are always very interesting, especially if you talk to somebody who had contact with him.
Yes.
But the stories about Clara Schumann are the best, because she was the village piano teacher.
Tell me a good story about Clara Schumann.
Well, she always complained about everything, and she liked people who were nice to her, and she said that she really didn't care much for Brahms' piano music because the basses were too heavy. Well, that's because she played them too loud, you see. And so she was so provincial, and poor Robert was saddled with this provincial piano teacher. I mean, what could he do?
Now, you mentioned Toscanini.
Yes.
Did you meet him when you were working for NBC as a pianist? Is that how the link was
Yes,
established?
I was brought to NBC by a chance of fate. I used to do arrangements, orchestral arrangements. I did them when I was very young. And somebody saw some of them and said there would be a job at NBC. And then I played the piano for them, and they said, well, we probably get on the staff. So I waited for about a year, and finally it happened. And then I was in the keyboard department of the symphony for the first 8 years. Also, we had to play all the other commercial things at the time. So I have a repertoire that is of all Middle European operettas that no one ever heard of, and all the Gilbert and Sullivan operettas, Russian opera, the whole scene. I played in orchestras where the piano filled in, when there was something missing.
But was he a figure that everybody was in awe of in those days?
He was a great, great artist. He was a difficult man in many ways, but such a great artist that the flashes of genius that appeared during the rehearsals, not at the broadcasts or the concerts, but during the rehearsals, it was so wonderful that you would forgive him for all of his madnesses, and much of his mad goings-on were directed towards himself, because he wanted to be infallible, and none of us are.
Did you ever fall foul of his tongue or run across him in any way?
Only the first day. I was playing in a piece of Debussy. I was playing the Celeste in Iberia, and coming from Pittsburgh, we never heard of Iberia. And I had a lot of 200 and some bars rest, and then I had a very simple chord to play. It was the second. And I was sitting in the back of the orchestra. I'd never heard the piece before, so when the cue came, I had no idea where he was, so I didn't play. So he screamed and carried on, and he had the stagehands come out and bring the Celeste, which was a very small one, up past his stand and put it in front of him. And that day, I was wearing some new cologne, which had just come out. And it was really a smelly one. And as I went past his desk, he sniffed, and he reached down, he patted me on the cheek, and he never said unkind word to me again in all the years I was there. And he invited me to be a soloist, and which was very unusual. And I thought for a long time why he did this, and I think that it was because he associated cologne with rich South Americans and Italian royalty, because they were the only ones who wore it in those days.
What a lovely story. Well, you weren't very keen on La Campanella, which you recorded a few years ago. I don't think you're going to be very keen on this either, because this goes back even further. And it is, in fact, the recording that was made of the Rhapsody in Blue, with Toscanini conducting, Earl Wild as the pianist, and for good measure, the pianist, the clarinetist, is Benny Goodman. That's the beginning of the Rhapsody in Blue with my guest this evening, Earl Wild, playing the piano. Was that a terrible experience to hear that again?
Well, it's strange to hear it because the tape, it must have been stolen by an Italian company because none of us were ever notified that this record was being put out. Really? And first of all, they must have stolen it from one of the RCA archives because the whole beginning was cleaned up, because when Benny Goodman played the opening, he was so nervous that he made a great big, the glissando was a mess, and that had to be redone for a tape. RCA had hoped to release it, but so it's so strange to see that years later it comes out on an Italian record, which no one knew about.
That's right. I mean, I had no idea why it was an Italian album.
It was that whole scene was really wonderful at the beginning because I was a newcomer and unknown. And I was with Toscanini the day that Walter Toscanini came in and said that Benny Goodman had called when he heard he was going to do the Rhapsody and wanted to play the clarinet. And Maestro said, "Who is Benny Goodman?" So Walter explained to them he was one of the popular people and everybody loved him and whatnot. So Benny Goodman came in. Well, at the performance, Benny Goodman was the only time a clarinetist ever made an entrance with the soloist. It was most unusual, and the newspapers made such a scene how Toscanini had asked Benny Goodman to play this specially, and it was Benny Goodman received more publicity than Toscanini or anyone else. It was really wonderful. It was an example of what good publicity can a good publicity person can do for someone.
Sure. 1942, incidentally, was the year of that. But am I right that your musical career could have gone in that direction? Because didn't you write Broadway shows and things and all sorts of...
I wrote several reviews, but nothing was produced. Billy Rose had one of them. He asked for it 3 times, but it was very expensive. It was a show about when the fire trucks were changing over from the horses to the trucks, and we found this wonderful story in the fire department museum in New York. But it was so expensive because we had to have a treadmill with horses and all sorts of things. It would make a wonderful movie now because there hasn't been anything done in the movies about that period, and it's very interesting.
So you might have gone in an entirely different direction.
If he would have decided to produce that show, then I would have probably been totally different. Except that the piano was always my love from the time I can remember that I could even reach the keyboard. I loved the piano, and I have never lost that enthusiasm for it. And I don't mind practicing. I can practice all day.
What age were you when you first did reach the keyboard?
About 3. And the first piece I played, I imitated the opening of the Overture to Norma. We had one of those fat Edison records, and it was new at the time. And so I would imitate, and I had absolute pitch, so that it was easy for me to pick those things out.
So you could be said you have a natural aptitude for it. Then where does it come from? Is your mother, your father, anybody else in the family?
I really don't know, because my mother was just she took piano lessons after she was 21, but my father was tone deaf, but he was a mathematician, and so it was. And must have been a relative somewhere in the background.
But at what point did you realize that it might be a career? Were you desperately keen from early on?
There was never any doubt. Music was so wonderful because it helped me all through my younger years. I was so totally devoted to it that's all I wanted to do. And I rarely bothered to do anything else except my schoolwork. And it helped me all through my young years because it drowned out my family's quarreling. And all of the things that were wretched in life, I just drowned them out with my practicing. And I grew up like this, and it made me a very definite person. I've never had any problem making a living because of that. And I never cared whether I made lots of money or not. I always made enough to be very comfortable, but I never was a money grabber. For instance, I can only play maybe 35 concerts a year. When I hear of people who play 100 concerts a year or more, I think they must be totally insane, because that's an impossibility to maintain any kind of a personal feeling for it and get out and jump through the hoop every night like this.
You said that you're prepared to practice every day.
Oh, I do, yes.
You do actually?
Oh, yes.
How many days can go by without you getting at a piano and you'll be happy about it?
Oh, I'm never happy with that. If I go anywhere, I make sure that I have a piano set in, and even on a vacation. For me, it would be like not breathing.
Yes. Literally on holiday, you take a piano.
Holidays are... when I hear people talk about holidays, I always laugh. I don't know anything about that.
You don't go away from a piano at all?
No. If I go to the seashore, I take a piano with me.
When you were a boy, though, and you were talking about these people who came to Pittsburgh,
yes,
did you go and hear them in recital? Was that really?
I heard everyone. Yes, I even heard De Pachman, and then after De Pachman came Paderewski.
Was it Pachman that hummed?
He did everything. He fooled around with the lights. He fooled around with the pedals, everything, and did all sorts of things. He lived on 57th Street in New York. It's hard to think of him living anywhere. And He was really very peculiar. He was a big put-on also, you know.
Oh, was he?
Oh, yes. A lot of it was a big put-on. But
who really impressed you as a young lad, as a pianist?
Well, the first one was Paderewski. He didn't play big pieces very well that required tremendous energy and a strength, but slow pieces and nocturnes, he had the most beautiful tone. You know, you hear people make fun of him all the time because of his late records, which are very poor indeed. But when he was at his best, there were such beautiful things came out that you didn't mind if he played a clinker here or there.
Paderewski, then who? Who would be next?
Well, the next great one who came was Rachmaninoff. And he was something special in all ways. I always felt that, for instance, take Joseph Hoffman. Everybody talks about Hoffman being such a great artist. Hoffman was a great artist, but he wasn't compelled like Rachmaninoff was. Rachmaninoff was a compulsive musician. Hoffman had many other interests. And Hoffman's career was rather sad at the end. He drank a lot, you know.
But did Rachmaninoff play only his own music? Or did
No. He played many, he played all the great composers and played them marvelously. And he was devoted. He said he would never play in public unless he practiced, and that was true. Hoffman, on the other hand, oftentimes didn't practice, and it wouldn't be so good.
Mm. When you tell me, just when you are working up a piece, when you're learning a piece, and you're working off to play it, do you hear it in your head? And do you have occasions when you can hear how it should be in your head, but your fingers won't work?
Well, first of all, you know, to play the piano, it's a life of discipline. I mean that word in a good respect. I mean, you have to discipline yourself. You have to understand yourself totally, and that takes years. And it's only after many years of that you begin to understand a piece from the beginning to the end. You can practice technically and make it sound absolutely clear and wonderful, but there's something missing that way. Rachmaninoff, for instance, always said that in every piece there was one moment that was really the climax, and that he would try to find that piece and lead to it. Most people seize every opportunity, and when you're younger, you always seize every opportunity, and you make so many climaxes that when you come to the real thing, you don't even recognize it. You're so tired. So that's why people get married so many times.
Do you think you're playing better now than ever?
Oh yes. I feel it because it's almost become visual. You know, when you're so busy with so many things going on, the hands sometimes have a tendency to take over. But after years of discipline, the mind is the thing that's important, and it's from there that everything comes. And if the mind is understanding of the structure of the music and the sound, and the imagination comes into play, something wonderful happens. It's also very precarious because it's like nirvana. You know, you reach the edge, and it's like a high wire act because it's right on the edge of the subconscious that it's dangerous, but it's also the most wonderful place.
That is.
Later, pianist in residence at Colgate University, Hamilton, upstate New York, not so far from Pittsburgh, where our next 10 Fingers and Voice come from. Earl Wild has a vast repertoire, but he specializes in the music of Liszt. Now, Liszt was sometimes impatient with the insistence on Czerny's part of discipline, but years later he did dedicate to Czerny his studies of transcendental execution. was Earl Wild playing one of Liszt's studies, La Ricordanza. I guess Earl Wild is about the same generation as Vivian Harvey Slater. Grove's Dictionary rather vaguely lists him as born around 1930. Now, in the past, some have labelled Earl Wild as a virtuoso pianist. Maybe that was true in the past, but I would now consider him not merely a virtuoso, but as one of the great pianists of our time. A virtuoso, yes, but also a poet and a supreme master of the keyboard. Son of a steel worker, Earl Wild was the youngest pianist ever to play solo with Toscanini. It was the Rhapsody in Blue in 1942. Sometimes when musicians come to our studio, I try to seat them at the piano, in case I can encourage them to play a bit. When Earl Wild came in, he wasn't having any of that. He was in the middle of some Liszt recitals, he'd had enough of practicing and playing, so he sat me at the piano, himself beside the piano. And that's how we started talking. And we started talking, curiously enough, about a great musician with a piano style just about as far removed from Earl Wild's as possible. Arthur Schnabel. He was famous for his Beethoven playing, but he definitely wasn't the sort of pianist to play studies of transcendental execution.
Schnabel had a difficult life of it because he was never really a natural pianist. All you have to do is look at his editions, and they're wonderfully intellectualized, and he thought out every phrase, and he went into great detail. But in the final analysis, half the page is Beethoven, and then half the print below is Schnabel, and by the time you read it and whatnot, it really doesn't help. And since he wasn't a natural pianist, he had to fight the piano all his life. And maybe that was one of the things that the audience felt, this tremendous difficulty that he had with it, that he was trying to overcome. That's the strange thing in piano playing. Many of the people who come to hear music, they seem to be enchanted if the artist is having a struggle with the music. I, of course, don't believe in that. I think that one has to overcome that before you come out onto the platform.
You gave quite a lot of premieres, didn't you, in your time?
Yes.
What, Martinu I saw?
Yes, Martinu,
Which?
cello, the second sonata. Oh, it was a very funny thing. I liked Martinu. He was a very nice man. And he came to my apartment. I called and asked if he would come and hear the sonata, because when he sent the manuscript, it was in pencil and it was blurred. So I took notes when we rehearsed. It was with George Ricci, Ruggiero Ricci's brother. And so I took notes about whether it was a G or an A, or in the bass whether it was a B or a C. So when Martinu came, he sat down and we played it for him, and I got out my notebook, which was like 5 pages of questions, and I started and I said, Mr. Martinu, on bar 2, is it a C or a D? And he picked up the music and he'd go, what do you play? And I said, I played a D. He said, that's right. So then I asked another question, same thing. So finally, I just decided not to ask any more questions, and I played with all the changes that we made, or what we thought was correct, and that's the way it's printed. And he, Martinu was one of those people, he didn't mind whether there was a little difference in this. The flexibility of composers is so wonderful as compared to the Ortex group, as George Bollett often refers to them. He calls them the Ortex mob.
The ones who have to have every note.
Oh, it's platinum and sacred.
Your musical ancestry, you date back through a teacher to Saint-Saëns, don't you?
Yes, well, I date back to a lot of the famous old names. And speaking of Saint-Saëns, when Saint-Saëns came to Boston with the symphony, he came with his valet, who had black hair. He had very black hair. He was quite old, and they had a big dog with black hair. What do you call these big black dogs?
Poodles?
No, not poodles.
Labrador?
Yeah, Labradors, yes. And so the valet made quite a bit of extra money by selling pieces of Saint-Saëns hair for $25 a piece to the ladies in Boston, but the hair was really from the black Labrador dog.
I thought it wasn't coming. I'm sorry. I laughed too soon.
It's all right.
But I love his music. I'm sure you do too.
Oh, I think Saint-Saëns wonderful. When it's inspired, it's wonderful. I think the organ symphony is tremendous, and he was so well schooled, and the construction of the music is so good.
So
you always
elegant.
have to admire something.
Elegant too.
Yes. Oh, very elegant. Yes.
But I love the way you bounce along that tune in the. Ernest Newman always used to call it the Boulevard tune.
Oh, yes.
In the second concerto.
Yes.
Da-da, bop, bop.
Yes.
Sometimes people say that Earl Wild is one of the last pianists of the old school.
Oh, they say that about everyone who's past 60.
Oh, I see. Your technique, though, is really, I mean, very, very extraordinary. I've been listening to records the last few days. Things like that, I mean, repeated notes in that Liszt transcription of the Tarantella from Muetta di Portici.
Yes.
I don't think I've ever heard repeated notes quite so fast.
Well, you know, it's funny. I studied with people who really were very wise about how to use the hands. And for instance, in the Chopin First Waltz, in the repeated notes, you know, the part that goes ya ta 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 ta. I can play that with any finger as fast as you want it, from the little finger down to the thumb, and I don't have to repeat the fingers. You see, Liszt was very much for that. He said one should never repeat change the fingers on repeated notes unless it was very fast and you had to.
Really? But
yes.
I mean, I was always taught to do the other.
Oh, everyone is, and the difference in the sound is so tremendous when you play it with one finger. It's much more beautiful. One can learn those things, you know, by having fun. That's why children should be exposed to all the exciting music that is imaginative, like William Tell and all of the Rossini overtures and many of the old overtures, which are so much fun, and all the pieces that make them excited, because then if they try to play it, they start to learn how to use their hand naturally before anyone tells them.
I used to do that. I used to play soupe overtures.
Oh, wonderful.
Aubert.
Yes. Oh, yes.
People like that.
I love to play those pieces. I play pieces by Aubert on the piano, and I always ask my friends what pieces they are. I'll give you a demonstration of one of the Aubert pieces. Masaniello is this one. His wonderful tune is and one of the overtures that I really love is the Massenet Phèdre.
I don't know that.
The tune is so pretty. It's so beautiful, the tune. And I love all those old pieces. I wonder if you know what this one is.
Dum da dum da dum da dum da dee da 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 dee. Isn't that super?
No.
I don't know.
It's Raimonda.
Oh, Toma.
Yes. Yes. Toma has that wonderful tune in it, this one.
Bum, bim, bum.
I think all those old tunes are so amusing and they're so nice and they have great charm.
Yeah.
And one of the things that's happened to music is that those pieces are only played at pop concerts or where they have a run-through, and they come out as pieces of trash. Now, if you, I was talking the other day about the Liszt Les Préludes. I heard recently a recording by Mengelberg made in 1929 in Amsterdam. It's sensational. You want to get out a sword and take to fighting in the middle of it. It's so exciting. I enjoy so much playing things on the piano that possibilities, like, for instance, if Beethoven would have lived in the United States, I'm sure that the Waldstein Sonata would have had this in it. You see? And there's all kinds of possibilities. And I often do the first versions of famous Beethoven sonatas.
You mean from actual sketches?
No, I make them
From
up.
your idea?
Yes.
Oh, I see.
It's fun.
You do a lot of transcriptions,
Yes.
that you play at your own concert. Don't you think this is a thing that pianists really ought to know more about, playing orchestrally?
Well, it's so wonderful to know orchestral music on the piano, because if you can play those things on the piano, you have a better understanding then of the actual piano music. For instance, to be able to play the Brahms Third Symphony, or just to go... That gives you an idea of the F minor sonata. And it's helpful in all of the dramatics of the works, because we have gotten so square that drama has been forgotten, and the whole idea of music has been forgotten. Everyone's counting. It's so awful. And then they lift the pedal all the time, as though silence was more important than the music that's being played. Because, most romantic music was played in rooms that had usually some kind of a little bounce or echo. And if the sound wasn't in the pedal, at least it was in the reverberation.
Do you compose yourself as well as doing transcriptions and arrangements?
I love to work with the pencil and the paper because you learn so much. And also, one of the things that I think is the trouble with our present-day system of teaching piano, especially to young pianists, they grow up, they win contests, and if you were to say to them, please orchestrate a piece for me, they have no idea where to begin. And then you say, improvise something for me, they have no idea. Can you imagine an actor who wouldn't be able to get up and make a speech with an impromptu speech? Well, that's the way it should be on the piano with music. And if you can't do this, you should never go near music as a profession.
Do you improvise on themes?
Oh, yes. Yes,
I
very
mean,
much.
supposing I ask you to improvise on, I don't know, T-dum-ba-dee-dum.
That?
Tom.
Oh. What is that? I know that.
It's Bach.
Oh, yes. Yes, of course. What style would you like?
Poulenc.
All right.
Thank you very much. I think that's absolutely heavenly. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You got round to the piano.
Yes.
Well, I don't know when I've enjoyed an interview as much as that one with Earl Wild. Not only a master pianist, but a musician who really enjoys music and life. And that ends this edition of Talking About Music, so this is John Amis saying goodbye from London.